The woman you see here in this mugshot, get a good look at her face because she is accused of being a parent's worst nightmare. Law enforcement alleges that she tried to rip a young child from his grandmother's arms at a county fair this week. And even scarier about this story is this alleged attack, according to law enforcement, was completely random. Police say she had no previous relationship with anyone who is involved in this story. And for as brazen as those allegations sound, we're just getting started when it comes to what police say went down this week at this fair. And I'll tell you what we're also learning about this suspect's past, including that she appears to have been out on probation at the time police say all of this happened. Let's get into it. We're on the case presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. Maybe it's because I cover true crime for a living and we often talk about stories that are very important, but also very scary and very difficult to talk about, that I feel this way. But as a parent, when I take my kids out to maybe a sporting event, maybe a county fair, I get a little bit anxious. And it's really because of stories like the one that we're about to talk about that make me feel that way when we're out in public. I want you to take a look at the mugshot of Alexandra Kay Dawson. What she's accused of doing on Monday night is the type of thing that keeps parents up at night and makes them worried when they go to places like a county fair, which as a parent, you should never feel that way when you're going to a place for kids that is supposed to be fun. And the fair we're talking about took place in Queen Anne's County, Maryland, which is located right across the Chesapeake Bay from Annapolis. You're looking at Dawson's mugshot. And when I looked at her mugshot, just her facial expression stood out to me. There was like a smirk on her face. It almost felt like there was a lack of remorse, which is shocking considering what she's accused of. The Queen Anne's County Sheriff's Office says on Monday night they were called to the local county fair that's been going on there since 1942, and stuff like this just doesn't happen here, according to law enforcement. This fair is supposed to be a staple of the summertime in Maryland, as so many fairs are across the country, and this one doesn't appear to be the type of fair with like carnies and roller coasters. It's more of a livestock show, at least from the pictures that we saw on Facebook from years past. I'm just setting the scene for you. It also appears on Facebook that it's the kind of fair that is for young people. There are a lot of pictures of kids just having a good time in the summer at this fair. Okay, so we set the scene. Let's go to Monday night around 6 o'clock. And law enforcement says there was a grandmother with her grandson. She's holding onto her grandson's hand. They're in the goat barn, kind of like a petting zoo. And that is when the grandmother says she starts to feel the young boy being pulled away from her. Now, this is who the grandmother reportedly saw when she turned toward her grandson. According to WBOC TV, which got court documents, that suspect, Alexandra Dawson. Now, Dawson allegedly picked that boy up, put a baseball hat on his head, and then she tried to allegedly run away with that child. Terrifying. Now, the grandmother appears to have, according to what we're being told, fought back, probably with everything she could to try to stop Dawson from allegedly getting away with her grandson. And that is when someone who appears to be the hero in this story stepped in to help save this child. A man saw the altercation, he stepped in, and not only did he make sure that boy was able to get back safely with his grandmother and family, but he also held Dawson's arm to make sure she didn't get away before deputies arrived. Now, fortunately, the local sheriff does appear to have a presence at this fair, so presumably they were able to get to this situation quickly. They say they first detained total of 4 people. They say it appeared that Dawson was at this fair with 3 other people. At this point, we don't know much about them or any relationship they had with Alexandra Dawson. But after investigating, law enforcement says Dawson acted alone. She's the only one who's charged in this case. Any attempted kidnapping is obviously terrifying. It's a terrifying story to tell as a parent, but what makes this one really stand out is that law enforcement says that Dawson had no relationship with that family, no relationship with the young boy. They believe this was a random attempted kidnapping. And she just allegedly saw this child and tried to rip him away from his grandmother. This wasn't even a case, which also would have been very bad, where you have a child that maybe wanders away from the family and then sadly a predator would try to target them. That wasn't the case here. These allegations are brazen, to say the least. So who is the person, you might be wondering, who would be responsible for something like this? Of course, allegedly at this point. And we were wondering the same thing. So we looked up in Maryland court records, Alexandra Kay Dawson, and not only did we find the charges that she is facing in this case, and that she's currently being held without bond for. Those charges, by the way, kidnapping a child under the age of 16. At this point, we don't know the identity of the boy. That is obviously often protected from the public, but we also don't know his age, so we don't know how young he was. She's also facing second-degree assault and disorderly conduct. But we also found this is not the first time that she has reportedly been arrested, and she currently has open cases against her. In fact, court documents say she's currently out on probation related to a reckless endangerment case out of Queen Anne's County, Maryland. At this point, we don't have the court documents showing the specifics of that, who the victim might be, the circumstances surrounding it, but these online records show that she entered a guilty plea in February of this year, and she was sentenced to 18 months probation. But that's not all. We also found an active shall not contact order out of Anne Arundel County, Maryland, which is across the Chesapeake Bay near Annapolis. That was against Dawson in a domestic violence case. It was filed in December of last year. It is valid through January 8th of next year. And then there's another shall not contact order listed that was filed in December. It was valid through June of this year. That was out of Glen Burnie County, Maryland, also on the other side of the Chesapeake Bay from Queen Anne's County, Maryland, where this allegedly took place at the fair. It's unclear who the victims are in these cases and certainly a lot of the circumstances. That case is listed as closed, but it certainly paints a little bit of the picture of the legal trouble that this suspect has been in the past. Before we get back to this case out of Maryland, in this episode of On the Case, I want to take a moment and talk about our partners at Morgan & Morgan. We're talking about America's largest injury law firm. They have more than 1,000 attorneys, and they win a lot. They've recovered more than $25 billion from more than 500,000 clients. In just the past few months, a client in Florida received $12 million after the insurance company offered just $350,000. In Pennsylvania, a client was awarded $26 million. That is 40 times the insurer's $650,000 offer. Another client in Pennsylvania received $29 million after being offered only $500,000. Even if you don't think your case is worth millions of dollars, why not fight for what you deserve? Morgan & Morgan makes it so easy to start a claim. You can do it with just 8 easy clicks on your phone. So if you've been hurt and you need to start a claim, go to www.forthepeople.com/OTC. You can also scan this QR code on your screen or click the link below. We did find Dawson's Facebook page, and she appears to be in a relationship with someone who earlier this month, actually just a couple of days ago on August 10th, she wrote, quote, "Did you know that you're the most precious thing on this earth, and I'm super grateful for you." That's a very different type of person compared to the individual who police say tried to snatch a young boy from the arms of his grandmother at random at a county fair. So with that said, it is always important to note that everything that we're talking about here are allegations, and Dawson is innocent until proven guilty, and there certainly is a lot to know. We have not heard her side to the story. Now, the sheriff in Queen Anne's County did include this statement when he announced the arrest of Dawson, saying, quote, "The quick thinking and immediate actions of child's family, community members, and fair staff combined with the pre-coordinated safeguards and emergency response protocols established by the sheriff's office and the 4-H board allowed our deputies to respond within moments. Thanks to the strong community partnership and preparedness, we were able to bring the situation to a safe and timely resolution, ensuring the safety and security of everyone involved. We want to thank our community for all your support and assistance in providing timely information to assist us in our investigations," end quote. Joining us now to talk a little bit more about this case is Police Sergeant Kyle Schoberg, the host of the Shots Fired podcast. Thank you for taking the time, as always, to be with us here on Law&Crime. This case, it's just, for it to also be, according to police, just a random act that she didn't know the victim in this case. I mean, just how often do you see stories like this where there's just no connection?
I would say, this is a stranger kidnapping type of case. Those are unusual, but I have seen cases similar to this where strangers have tried to abduct smaller kids. And what it boils down to, in my experience, is sometimes these people are under the influence of drugs, alcohol, mental health issues, and sometimes they don't know exactly what they're doing. Uh, but in this case, just looking at her booking photo, that may have been a reason for her to go ahead and try to take this little boy.
Yeah, that booking photo stood out to me too. It was like this smirk on her face, and we don't know, police have not said whether they believe that there's any sort of drugs involved, or we know that she has a criminal record, but any sort of mental health issues. But I mean, for you, and you've been in the room, I'm sure many times these booking photos are taken. How do you typically read when you see a booking photo like that, as you're trying to assess a case and what police say happened?
Well, I mean, you look at a booking photo like that, and you're looking at, we're trained to look at people's pupils and see if they're under the influence of maybe drugs or alcohol or whatever. So, I mean, you can, as law enforcement officer, you can look at somebody and look at their eyes, which is very telling, and be able to determine that. So, when I look at a booking photo and I see somebody who looks like that or appears like that, those are the things that I look at to maybe, I don't want to use the term justify what happened, but maybe give me a little bit of an inkling or a clue as to maybe why this happened. So, and it looks like someone gave her a shiner because she had a big old black eye going on. So,
Yeah, there is a lot to take in just from that booking picture, and a lot to take in from apparently how all this went down, where you have this grandmother. We don't know the age of the victim in this case, but Dawson is accused of being able to pick him up and walk away with him, or at least try to. So I don't think we're talking, we know he's under 16, but probably under the age of a teenager. In these types of cases where you have like an attempted kidnapping, I guess how out of the ordinary is it for it to just be as, it just stood out to me how brazen this was. This wasn't like this kid wandered away from his family and then you have that predator that's there waiting for him. In this case, it was he's holding the hand of his grandma and she allegedly tried to just rip him away.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, usually when stuff like that happens, the person clearly is not in the right headspace of what they're trying to do. And so, but it does, as a parent, I mean, it really makes you be cautious about who your surroundings, who's around your kids. I mean, keeping an eye on them. That's a really scary thought to think that you can't go to a fair and have someone there to try to take your kid while you're holding their hand. I mean, imagine if the grandma wasn't holding his hand. And then the thought is, well, what was this lady going to do with him after she took the kid? Because if I read the article correctly, it said she put a hat on the boy, or maybe to try to disguise him. I don't know, but yeah, so very bizarre. That is not clearly not normal. And so that was my thought was, well, what was her next move? And I'm glad that the grandma had physical contact of him, because it's so easy, and I've seen it happen before, where you turn your back from your kid for 1 second and then you turn around and they could be gone. And so that's a scary thought.
And apparently there was a good Samaritan that was there that stepped in, saw this altercation that was taking place, was able to make sure the kid got back to his grandma, but also grabbed allegedly Dawson's her arm and kept her there until police were able to arrive. How often can that though be like a slippery slope? Because as much as that's like your second nature thing you want to do, and you want to make sure police can get the person that you perceive as being bad. If she hadn't done anything and you're as just a regular citizen detaining someone, what does the law say about that?
Well, as a citizen, you are allowed to make citizens arrests. And cops are mandated to take those arrests from the citizen itself. And so I, I think, I think I look at this and I think to myself, well, thank goodness that a good Samaritan did step in and help this grandma and this young boy. But as far as detaining somebody, I mean, they have every right to hold her down in any physical capacity they need to keep her there, to wait for law enforcement to show up to effect the arrest. And I'm glad that they did do that, because you don't want somebody like that out on the loose. A lot of times we do go to calls and people, they'll give us the information, but those people are gone. And so now you got to try to track those people down. It's often very difficult. Most of the time you don't. And so I'm glad that they did their part and held her down and waited for cops to show up.
Oh, absolutely. I am too. I feel like there are some times then you hear the story that, oh, it seems like there's times that the law in certain parts of the country, might have an issue if you lay your hands on someone in that capacity. But it's good that she was there because now police can review her. Let's just say there's some mental health issues there, which clearly on the surface there may be, or maybe drugs. And that's, I'm not making, kind of an excuse for her, but if that's the reason she says this happened, how would the law and how she was charged play into that? Because there's not an excuse for it to happen, but to say, hey, I'm not like a human trafficker type person. I had too much to drink and I'm not trying to defend her, but this is why it happened. How would the law look at that type of argument?
Yeah, I think that boils down to what state are you in, and even down to the county that you're in. The county that I work here in California, they have a new protocol. It's a mental health diversion program, and some people may not agree with it. But if you do commit a crime and you can articulate or prove that you have some type of mental health illness, rather than put you in jail, incarcerate you, or probation, they're giving this mental health diversion program out to people. So again, like it or not, a lot of counties and states are moving that direction. But if that were the case, they would have to prove that obviously that she does suffer from some type of mental health, and that'll be on her defense team to do that. But if that's the case, I mean, they have several different options that the district attorney can do, and that could be to lessen the sentencing. Who knows? I mean, they may. She was charged with a couple other, it looked like misdemeanor offenses, so they may drop those offenses and just stick with the kidnapping. But that's in a nutshell how that works, and she's going to have to prove that.
I mean, kidnapping is just such uh, it's a serious charge, obviously. I mean, just even the term, and you think about what happened. I mean, the X's and O's of how this played out, whether it was a mental health issue or drugs or whatever it may be. I mean, how serious? I mean, how likely is it she could see some prison time, especially because she was also out on probation, it appears, from the online court records we saw,
Yeah.
that even if that was, hey, a spur of the moment mistake by me, you're still facing kidnapping and you were also out on probation.
Yeah, that's going to add a substantial amount of time for her. To commit a crime while out already on probation, I mean, generally speaking, that already makes it a felony, and so she'll have to deal with that. But so in terms of speaking of, the term or charge of kidnapping, that is when you hear that, your brain automatically goes to, you think of someone abducting a child or something like that. And so, but in reality, just taking somebody physically and moving them even from one room to another. And we do a lot of this with domestic violence calls where maybe two spouses or significant others are in an argument, someone grabs someone and they pull them into another room. By definition, that actually would be kidnapping. So I think what the courts have to do, they have to separate all those types of different types of kidnapping charges that happen, even though it falls under one umbrella, if that makes sense. And you're talking about a kid being taken in this scenario. So I would like to think that the courts are going to take that very serious and go after her to the full extent for that.
Yeah, and especially too because of what appears to be the criminal record just within the last 12 months or so for this to then happen at a county fair. As far as I think for a lot of parents who watch this, because these allegations, I mean, this is the nightmare, right? If you're a parent, just someone would
Yeah.
come up and snatch your kid at an event when you're not expecting. And it seems like the grandmother, by holding the boy's hand, that was the right thing to do. This good Samaritan who stepped in to help detain the suspect in this case. But as a police officer who sees these types of cases, like what's the advice you give parents when you go to maybe a sporting event, a concert, county fair, and just making sure that these types of things don't happen?
Yeah, the bummer thing is this is a traumatizing event for that whole family. I mean, they're never going to be able to trust going anywhere ever again without somebody trying to take their kid. I mean, that's very traumatizing. So in today's day and age, thank goodness we've evolved so much in technology. I mean, parents are putting air tags in their kids' shoes, backpacks. You can get watches that have GPS installed in them that you can link to your phone. I mean, there's a ton of things that you can do today that you can track your kid. And I know some people think, well, that wouldn't happen to me, and I don't need to go to the extent of putting an air tag in my kid's shoes. Well, you look at a case like this, and this family's at a local fair, you know, seeming to have fun, and some lady decides to try to take this boy. So I think as a parent, I'm a father myself with two young kids. I would say take all that stuff serious, and if you can layer of protection to track where your kid is at, do it because it's only going to benefit you. I mean, hypothetically, if a kid was taken, those first few hours of locating that kid is going to be absolutely crucial. And if there's no way to track them, it is incredibly difficult. So that would be my advice: is utilize the technology that's out there.
I mean, could you just imagine if, and fortunately, everybody was able to be detained in this situation, but if, what happens next, and we don't know, there's still a lot of questions. I always wonder for police, when you get the assignment, whether it's at like a county fair or like a big time sporting event, you just have a massive crowd. And I'm sure part of this too, I mean, no one is expecting at the Queen Anne's County, Maryland County Fair that, this type of thing would be called. But how do you on that, you're assigned to go to this. What are you looking for in the crowd in these types of assignments that police officers get?
Yeah, well, fortunately, when cops are assigned to these events, I mean, the whole agency gets together. They have command posts set up. There's a lot of behind the scenes that go into place to really help mitigate major things happening. But something like this, or if I'm in a crowd of people walking around, you're just kind of observing people, letting people come up to you if they have any complaints. A lot of times, honestly, the thing you handle the most is a parent coming up to you and telling you that, hey, my kid is missing. And once that happens, I mean, everybody gets involved to try to find the kid. But yeah, I mean, you're just out there showing yourself, you're being visible, letting the public know that, hey, we are here. But than that, there's just not a whole lot you can do other than hopefully maintain the peace.
Yeah, and I mean, this was like a livestock show too, and I mean, it's just crazy that all of this played out in the like petting zoo for goats. But fortunately,
Yeah. Well,
it didn't end up being, that boy is back with his family, but what a traumatizing experience. Kyle Schoberg,
yeah.
host of the Shots Fired podcast, police sergeant. It's always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for talking with us about this one.
Cool. Thanks, Chris. It was good to see you guys.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.